Malaga Radio.
Freshly squeezed.
The juice on all the daily events along the coast.
With just a little bit of zest.
You're listening to Malaga Radio Diary. I'm Carmen.
And I'm Baptiste. This is Festivals and Traditions. This week, covering Monday the 17th to Sunday, the 23rd of August. Malaga Feria is already in full flow. Cortes de la Frontera begins its own mountain feria later in the week, and Antequera gives us several individually confirmed traditions through the weekend.
So Malaga City may be living inside feria this week, but Malaga province is definitely not one enormous feria.
Which is useful because the same word can describe celebrations that feel completely different depending on where you are.
Exactly. And if this is your first Malaga Feria and words like rail, caseta, or Verdiales are still new to you, our Malaga Feria 2026 special explains the whole thing from the beginning. This week, we can go a little deeper because the feria has already started. Now we can look inside it.
And the first thing that really stands out in Malaga this week is the horse program.
Yes, because if you only catch sight of a carriage or a rider somewhere around the rail, it can look as though the horses are simply part of the scenery. They are not. There is an entire equestrian program running through the week.
At the Centro de Exhibición Ecuestre inside the Real de Cortijo de Torres, the performances are much more than simply watching a few horses pass by. Across the week, you can see formal riding displays, traditional Andalusian dress, carefully presented harness and tack, carriage traditions, and performances built around Malaga's relationship with the horse. Tuesday is especially visual with the Paseo de Amazonas, traditional side saddle riding, followed by a judge presentation of equestrian clothing and harness.
So if you go specifically for the horses, you are not just seeing background decoration around the feria. You are seeing a proper cultural program with riders in formal dress, polished tack, controlled displays, and traditions that have been carried through generations. It is one of those moments where you suddenly realize how much of feria culture has been carried through generations, rather than invented for an August program.
And that gives visitors a useful way to think about the horses. You do not have to hope you happen to see them. If Andalusian equestrian tradition is one of the things that interests you, there is a proper program you can build part of your feria visit around.
And during the daytime, there is also the Paseo de Enganches y Caballos around the Real. So the horses are not tucked away in one performance space. They are part of the way the feria looks and moves.
There is another tradition you will keep hearing this week, Verdiales.
And we explained Verdiales properly in the feria special, so I am not going to give you the whole lesson again.
Progress.
I can if you want.
I knew that was dangerous.
But there is one thing worth noticing this week. The pandas change and so do the styles. You can hear traditions associated with Montes, Almogia, and Comares across the feria program. On Thursday, for example, Calelarios has Panda la Axarquia performing in the Comares style, followed by Panda Moclinejo in the Montes style.
So if I hear Verdiales on 2 different days, I may not actually be hearing exactly the same sound.
Exactly. Same wider tradition, but different local character. And I love that because during Feria Week, music from the hills and villages around Malaga arrives right into Calelarios. You can be standing in the middle of the city and hearing something with its roots much further inland.
Which also means Carmen now has another reason to disappear towards whatever music she hears first.
I prefer the phrase, follow the cultural program.
Of course you do.
For families, La Feria Mágica de la Tierra a la Luna continues in Plaza de la Merced through the Feria program. There are games, workshops, theater, puppets, street performances, magic, and music. So the daytime feria still has a very definite family strand.
And elsewhere in the center, Peña Juan Breva continues its afternoon flamenco program. That is a nice contrast inside the same feria. You can have the enormous movement of the streets outside, then step into something much more focused and traditional.
And on Wednesday evening, the Real also has the 7th Festival de Baile Flamenco de Escuelas de Málaga. That is another reminder that feria is not only built around famous artists. Local schools, local performers, and traditions passed on through younger generations are part of the official program too.
Now let us leave Malaga City for a moment, because from Thursday, the 20th through Sunday, the 23rd, Cortes de la Frontera celebrates its feria. And this is where the scale changes completely.
Very completely. Cortes sits up in the Serranía de Ronda, and when a mountain town celebrates, the relationship between the feria and the town feels much closer. In Malaga, you have the historic center and then this enormous dedicated rail at Cortijo de Torres. In Cortes, Plus, the streets, squares, and local meeting places are much more obviously part of the same community celebration.
So, although we are using the same word, feria, the visitor experience can be very different.
Yes, and that is one of the things I really like about this week. You can see what a feria looks like at city scale, then travel inland and see how a much smaller community makes the same idea its own.
The confirmed Cortes program runs from the 20th to the 23rd, with preliminary patronal activity beginning on the 19th. So this is not a speculative annual date. It is part of the verified program for this week.
And because it is a smaller place, the celebration naturally feels more tied to local families, neighbors, and people returning home for the feria. You are seeing a town celebrating itself rather than simply hosting entertainment.
Antequera gives us another version again, and we are going to be precise here. We have several individually confirmed feria traditions in Antequera this weekend, so we can tell you about those. We are not going to pretend we have a complete umbrella program where we do not.
And the first confirmed one is very Antequera. Friday the 21st, from 11 in the morning, the Paseo Real hosts the 11th Concurso Nacional de Porra Antequerana.
Which sounds like lunch has become competitive.
In the best possible way. Porra Antequerana is one of the dishes most closely associated with the town, and I like this as a feria tradition because food here is not being treated only as something to sell. It becomes something people compare, make, judge, and take pride in.
So even if you never enter the competition, it tells you something useful about Antequera. A local dish has become part of the public identity of the feria.
Then on Saturday the 22nd at 12:30, also at Paseo Real, there is the 11th Concurso de Trajes de Flamenca y de Corto. Traditional flamenco, dresses and the traje corto, the short Andalusian riding suit.
Which connects very naturally with the equestrian traditions we have already been seeing in Malaga. But again, the setting changes.
Exactly. Different feria, different town, but some of those visual traditions travel across Andalusia. The clothes, the horses, the formal presentation, they are part of a much wider cultural language.
Then Antequera's historic bullring has two individually confirmed events. On Saturday at 7:30 in the evening, the Corrida del Arte del Rejoneo. And on Sunday, the 23rd, also at 7:30, the traditional Corrida de Toros Goyesca.
Bullfighting is part of the documented feria program and an established tradition in Antequera. Whether that is part of the week you want to explore is completely your decision. Our job is simply to tell you accurately that it is there.
And perhaps that gives us the useful discovery in this episode. There is no single standard product called feria.
Exactly. Malaga gives you a huge city celebration with a historic center, a dedicated rail, an equestrian center, Verdiales, family activity, flamenco, and several generations sharing the same enormous program. Cortes de la Frontera gives you a mountain town feria where the community and celebration sit much closer together. Antequera gives us individually confirmed traditions around local food, traditional dress, equestrian culture, and its historic bullring.
Same word, different geography, different scale, different personality.
And that is something visitors sometimes miss. If you enjoy one feria, it does not necessarily mean you have already seen what all the others are like.
There is one final change this week. Saturday, the 22nd, is the final official day of Malaga Feria, so Sunday feels different.
For most of the week, Malaga City has been the enormous center of gravity. Music in the historic center, the Real glowing at night, horses, families, Verdiales, flamenco, crowds moving between different versions of the same celebration. Then Sunday arrives, and the official Malaga Feria has finished.
But the province has not stopped celebrating. Cortes de la Frontera is still within its feria, and Antequera still has that confirmed Sunday Goyesca at 7:30 in the evening.
I like that. One feria is beginning to pack away its lights, while somewhere else people are still gathering. That is August in Malaga province. There is rarely only one story happening.
So for Monday the 17th through Sunday the 23rd, the big festivals and traditions story is Malaga Feria in full flow. But look beyond the headline and you find the equestrian program, changing Verdiales traditions, and local cultural performances inside it. Then later in the week, Cortes de la Frontera changes the scale completely, and Antequera gives us several individually confirmed traditions through the weekend.
And if Malaga Feria is new to you, listen to our Malaga Feria 2026 special for the full first-timers guide. That explains the center, the Real, the casetas, and how the whole celebration fits together. You can find Malaga Radio podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and the other major podcast platforms.
For current places, dates, and the details behind this week's events, explore malagaradio.net. And throughout the week, week, Freshly Squeezed will be keeping up with the daily events, what is happening that day, what is coming later, and the useful details worth knowing before you head out.
And remember, you do not have to fill every hour of your holiday. Sometimes it is enough just to know what is happening around you.
From Carmen and me, enjoy the week.
And wherever you find yourself celebrating, enjoy it your way.
Malaga Radio. Malaga Radio.